Georgia lawmakers wrapped up the 13th day of the legislative session on Thursday, meaning they're about one-third of the way through the 2025 session. Bills continue to be introduced, committee meetings are being held, and proposals are starting to move. Here's a recap of what happened at the Capitol this week. The House passed the $40.5 billion mid-year budget overwhelmingly on Thursday. The budget spending focuses on hurricane relief and public safety mainly, and it now heads to the Senate for consideration. Speaker Jon Burns announced his school safety plan, which, among other measures, mandates statewide participation in a new student information sharing and safety database, requires threat assessment teams to be implemented in schools, and increases penalties for individuals who make terroristic threats. This package will be sponsored by Representative Holt Persinger, who represents Barrow County, where the tragic school shooting at Appalachia High School took place. The Senate adopted the Fair and Safe Athletic Opportunities Act, which will, quote, prohibit males from participating in interscholastic and intercollegiate competitions on teams designated as female, and vice versa. Senate Bill 1 is sponsored by Senator Greg Dolezal. Senate Bill 2, which would exclude tips from taxation, cleared the Senate Finance Committee. This bill is also sponsored by Senator Dolezal, who claims it will save taxpayers $65 to $95 million per year. Bills intended to encourage and provide incentives for local boards of education to approve new charter schools have been introduced in both chambers. House Bill 202 and Senate Bill 82, both referred to as the Local Charter School Authorization and Support Act of 2025, are sponsored by Representative Scott Hilton and Senator Clint Dixon, respectively. House Bill 92, sponsored by Representative Shaw Blackman, will extend the time frame for local governments to opt out of the floating homestead exemption that voters adopted last year. Previously, local governments and school systems were required to opt out by March 1, 2025, and this bill, which passed out of committee this week, allows them the ability to initiate opt-out proceedings for any year until March 31, 2029. House Bill 192, sponsored by Representative Matthew Gamble, is Governor Brian Kemp's Top State for Talent Act. Its purpose is to align career education with Georgia's workforce needs. This passed out of the Curriculum Subcommittee this week and now heads to the full House Education Committee. Another workforce education bill has been introduced as well. House Bill 217, sponsored by Representative Sue Hong, would make the Dual Achievement Program a permanent statewide program. The Senate Education and Youth Committee unanimously advanced Senate Bill 22, sponsored by Senator Blake Tillery, which would require the Georgia Department of Education to publish all guidance received from the federal government. The Foundation's Kennedy Atkins testified in support of this bill. House Bill 341, sponsored by Representative R-Newington, would provide employees with a state tax credit for contributing to an individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, or ICHRA, for their employees. Senate Bill 122, the Craft Beer and Local Economy Revitalization Act, was introduced by Senator John Albers. It would remove the current limit on buying beer directly from the brewer for off-campus consumption and would lessen restrictions on craft brewers' ability to donate beer for charitable events. The Senate Economic Development and Tourism Committee postponed its first hearing for Senate Bill 28, the Red Tape Rollback Act of 2025 that would require state agencies to provide a review of new and existing regulations every 4 years. The bill is sponsored by Senator Dolezal and is expected to receive a committee hearing next week instead. Also next week, the Senate Judiciary Committee is expected to begin its hearings on the tort reform legislation, Senate Bill 68 and 69, which figure to be one of the top priorities of the session. Lawmakers will reconvene on Monday. For more from the 2025 Georgia legislative session, please be sure to subscribe to our weekly Friday Facts newsletter.